Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Card Authority. We are very, very lucky tonight. Good evening. Welcome. I should know that by now. We are very lucky tonight to have, well, some may say, a voice of not only this generation, but future generations. In the studio with us, he's been traveling around the world, jumped straight off his plane, straight on the media street today. It's good to have you back, Janks.
And it's great to be back.
Is your wrist sore from all the autographs?
Wrist is sore. It's nice and tanned, as you can see. It's not just the light; it's legit. I actually got to go on holiday, so that was quite amazing. But yes, I've been back for a few days now, and what a big few days it has been, AJ. And it all,
yes, Tyron, that really is Adam Janky in the flesh.
That's in the flesh.
Very fortunate.
Get your screenshots through now.
Justin,
those captions through right now.
Butters, Glennie, Wade, Andrew C on
Welcome.
YouTube. Welcome, everyone.
We love a good Card Authority podcast too, as well.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. G'day, Pete.
Well, I sort of went away after we did the last one. I missed the entire release of Brilliance, but we'll get to that shortly.
I did have good intentions of actually, hey Stacey, I did actually have good intentions of doing a podcast while you're away, but I mean, carrying the weight of the industry was I couldn't find time. G'day, Tom. G'day, Robert and Mason.
Before we get stuck into the Brilliance stuff, yeah, obviously a lot of big things have been happening in the broader sense of the hobby outside of just AFL.
Yep.
And
go Billy.
I was obviously afforded an opportunity this morning, which was fantastic, to get on with 3AW again to talk about trading cards with Neil Mitchell, which was a great opportunity there off the back of a huge.
So what happened?
Yeah.
So Neil was sitting there in the studio.
Yeah.
And he's like, Card Authority, AJ2. He saw the Titanic post, obviously, yesterday, and he just sort of got you straight up on the phone and how's it going?
I don't want to ruin a good story, but unfortunately, that's not how it went down.
Okay.
It was more like 7:15 a.m. My phone started ringing, and it was a producer from 3AW saying,
right,
Neil's doing a segment off the back of this record sale. And I was just, of course, obliged.
So what happened? Tell us about the sale.
Obviously, all right, so big record sale. Let's get down to
if you were stuck under a rock.
Yeah, and the last couple of days over the weekend, something huge transpired, not just in trading cards, but also in the memorabilia world, because the biggest ever sale of a memorabilia item, which happened to be a trading card, went through. We had the 1952 9.5 graded SGC card of the Mickey Mantle Topps rookie card. This is the variation from the series that apparently a lot of it was dumped in the Atlantic Ocean around 1960. Very hard to find the cards in general, and certainly very hard to find the high-graded versions. So sold for $12.6 million US at auction, which is an astronomical figure, and the story is certainly doing the rounds at the moment. It's a big sign. Also, during the week as well, there was a Kobe Bryant went for $1.75 million, a refractor graded at PSA 10 as well. So some really big sales over the last few days, and certainly putting trading cards right back out into the mainstream media.
So I guess for people that perhaps are more recreational enthusiasts in the hobby market, give a little bit of a snapshot at why suddenly a card, not a great example, but a card can be worth so much money. And 12 million is obviously an astronomical money.
Yeah.
What are the factors that drive a card to get to that price above and beyond the obvious scarcity?
Well, scarcity and rarity is obviously going to be the main one. In modern trading cards, short printed cards are generally numbered, or if they're unnumbered, they're advertised as being super short print cards. But for the most part, we've obviously got stamping and serial numbers. Back in years gone by, or decades and decades gone by, cards were produced in different ways and different volumes. They were utilized and collected and traded and swapped, and all sorts of things. We've talked about how cards got put in the spokes of wheels, things like that. I spoke to Daniel Garb on ABC this afternoon as well about, the situation with Topps. Topps was a chewing gum company that then created trading cards to help them promote and sell their chewing gum.
Yep.
And then obviously cards became so big over time, they became a trading card company. But cards from back in those eras as well were discarded. Like if they didn't sell, they threw huge volumes out. So you've got two things going on. One, you've got the fact that there may have been a huge amount discarded, so there's a limited amount to begin with, coupled with what's happened to them over time in terms of the condition. So therefore, finding those type of cards, and whether it's the Mantle or it's an Onus Wagner from, I think it was 1909, there's a lot of those older cards. And in a similar way, you can look at AFL and look at some of the Scanlan series, obviously the 63 Scanlans, which a lot of it never made it into public circulation. So as a result, you've got super high value cards from those releases.
So apart from the obvious, stories, like with Scanlans, it was left at a train station, or the one we heard today that it was dumped in the ocean. Putting all those aside, who are the kind of people that are going and spending that kind of money on a card? Clearly, it's not someone like Minx, but is it more someone that is, a rich investor, or is it an investment fund, or is it what sort of person or group of people are buying cards like this?
Certainly, over the last few years, we've seen things change. The hobby is no longer just collectors. There's a full ecosystem of different types of people and businesses and operations and things that are going on. And with that has come investment at a very high level. I'm not sure if that card was bought by an individual collector, if it was bought by an equity fund as an investment play. Was it bought by a syndicate of different people? I'm not exactly sure, but we are certainly seeing a lot more of that taking place. There's been a lot of public disclosure about, private equity funds and different vehicles that have been set up and how much money they're deploying. In 2021, it was market analysis of the global trading card industry was worth $25 billion, which was up from 2018 when it was only worth $5 billion. So you had a 5x increase into 2021, and the forecasting at the moment, and again, whether it gets to it or not, is it's going to be a $250 billion industry or $270 billion industry within the next decade.
So that begs the question, if you've gone out and spent $12 million on a card, they must have reasonably good expectations that they're going to get a return on that card at some point.
If it's as an investment, absolutely. If it's I'm sure there's people purchasing trading cards, people in the same net worth category as people buying expensive pieces of artwork, multi-million dollar paintings and things like that as well.
Yep.
Now, is the expectation that all those type of items will appreciate over time? Absolutely. But I think at the time of purchase, that's not necessarily the main consideration for the buyer.
But that would have to be a big factor of $12 million.
Sure,
card.
Absolutely. But some people want that as part of their collection. It might be a billionaire that's buying cards like this for their own personal display or collection, or I don't know if you're putting a $12 million card on display. Who knows?
It's relative, I guess.
Yeah, I think, but what it does show is that it isn't just individuals out there, which creates a low ceiling in the market. There is huge money being deployed and spent here.
Yep.
So as a result, it shows how the strength of the overall marketplace and how much is really actually taking place.
And look, we've obviously, through our other businesses here at RGB, we've got a series of collectors that we look after and buy master sets and certain things for them. Obviously, 12 million is daylight, years away, but do you see a scenario down the track that let's use a Dusty rookie card, for example, that was a couple of $100 card and now is, $1,000 card. Do you see a time in history where that card is $10,000 or $100,000?
Potentially. It certainly can't go into the millions of dollars, I don't think. And we have to look at AFL cards and say, okay, although AFL cards are huge, they're huge here. And we're limited by head of population in that sense, as is anything in Australia. I don't see there being a time.
A bit of fuzziness. I'm just going to switch over to the other mic. Hopefully that fixes it up 1 sec, guys.
I don't see there being a time necessarily where it's going to become big overseas for AFL cards, but I think price rises into the future will continue to happen and will be relative to that point in time. And I think, production numbers are actually decreasing on AFL cards and have been over the last
5, 6, 7 years. You know, you start to look back at some of the DPSs from series from 8 years ago.
Yep.
They were printed to like 800. So as much as we may think there's dilution taking place, we're nowhere near the card volume that we used to be on the numbering of certain cards. So again, historically, I would like to think you'll be able to look back in time, and what you purchased your cards for during any period will always be more over a more substantial period.
And we're certainly going to touch
The
on
right
a little,
cards.
we're going to touch on it a little bit when we talk about Brilliance in a second. I think, you know, overall it's a positive sign, and we've certainly identified this for a couple of years, that the way a community and a hobby turns into an industry is by having mainstream recognition of it being more than just a hobby. You know, it becomes, as you said, an asset class or something like that.
The industry is part of the hobby. Look at sports themselves. Golf is a hobby.
Yep.
It's a huge industry.
Yep.
With all different types of people with different financial incentive taking place. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like trading cards, it's a hobby, but there's all sorts of things going on within that hobby. There is industry, there is collecting, there is someone who's just there to get the $3 a packet worth of cards to play with the cards, do what it is with
the business of cards.
That's right.
Like
there's so many different parts to it, and as we're seeing AFL cards mature, it's things are moving more into line with operationally and structurally, like other parts of the trading card world.
And there definitely seem to be more operators and more people that are working in the business of cards that are trying to, you know, move it into another direction.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, as always, you know, it's an absolute privilege to have Adam in the studio. And now that he's,
it's great to be back.
And now that he's, you know, Media Street Adam, it's nice to have him back on board. But as always with Card Authority, please send through your questions. We will attempt to answer them for you as we're going out the show. Now let's touch on Brilliance. Last time we spoke, Brilliance was just getting released. It sold out pretty quick, you know, minute, 60 seconds, whatever it was.
You
know, there was obviously all the usual rhetoric of bots and burners.
So I was here for the on sale, but I wasn't here for the actual release.
So release was good. Everyone was generally really happy with it. Card prices certainly came out incredibly hot. Well above what we expected they would. They certainly started to pull back. From afar, how did you see the tone and the interactions across communities?
So everyone knows, so I was away for 3 weeks overseas in a completely different time zone, but midnight my time was 7 a.m. your time. So I was speaking to AJ every other day, and I was obviously keeping slight tabs on what was going on, making sure that I was picking up the cards I need for my collection, but also watching what was happening in the space. As you said, everything came out super hot price-wise. Some things have stayed at that price level. A lot of other things have obviously dropped into probably where they should sort of be before they start to move back up again. What are we, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks now into release?
Sounds about right.
I feel like exactly as things tend to go. Things come out hot, then people want to recoup their money. They can't get they've finalized their trades or they finalize their sets. They begin to sell off excess that they don't want anymore. I just feel like, again, everything's just happening really quickly. I feel like we've reached the bottom of the prices of cards at this stage.
I agree.
I feel like when you look at the technicals, like the depth on eBay and stuff, it's completely thinning out. There's far less product being uploaded than what's going through and what's selling through. So the depth continues to diminish. I know from like a St Kilda perspective, and it would be the same across the board with most Victorian teams and some of the interstate teams, it's really becoming hard and apparent to find certain cards. I think Brilliance, given most cards numbered to 50 and then some cards numbered to 35, that people forget that this is also a series where people do complete master sets, not just team sets. And also there's a number of really big and important players, especially on the called the veteran side of things, which get collected by individuals as well. So numbering to 50, although it seems like there was a lot out there, it's become very apparent there's not much out there anymore.
It definitely feels like it's dried up a lot from my perspective.
There's not many sales threads anymore.
Yeah, and the sales threads that are going up are probably the less desirable cards from the less desirable teams.
Yep.
But I definitely notice, a few cards from a Richmond point of view. You haven't seen many Dusty Golds. You're not really seeing many Matthew Richardsons. There are not so many signatures. I mean, there's a few that are pretty crazy prices, but there seems to be a legitimate restriction or very limited amount of stock that's floating around at the moment.
Yeah. So look, it seemed like a lot of look. I didn't see many people that said they didn't get boxes, or there was certainly I saw a few people who got cancelled and things like that. But for the most part, it seemed like everyone got what they wanted.
Yep.
It seemed like a lot of people, if they bought 2 or they bought 4, they opened 1 or 2 and then sold 1 or 2.
Yep.
Certainly, all the breakers, including us, had no issue acquiring stock.
Yep.
There were sellers everywhere. And
that's dried up
now, but not just the eBay sellers. But at first, upon release, like obviously, and again from you and I speaking, those first couple of days, there was a lot of people more than happy to get their money back and more for half of what they had got from Select.
Yeah.
And then open what they got. And again, not just as a business, but from the collectors ecosystem, it's actually a really good thing. It's not a bad thing at all, because we know that money is regenerating back. So there's people we know, and I'm certainly not going to say anyone's names, who sold us boxes and used the money to purchase the cards that they wanted from the series, which means it's just recirculating the money within the ecosystem, which is really what we want to see. What we don't like to see is outsiders, and again, you know the intricacies of this. Maybe just talk about a bit of what happened around release and the concept of the bots and discords and all that stuff that was going on. I think that's important.
Yeah, so I certainly made a very conscious effort to learn more about this space, and obviously we get sent tons and tons of messages all the time about bots, ruining the release and things like that. And through my investigation and trying to learn more about it, the bot mitigation that Select are using is quite substantial. And we spoke to some third-party companies to give us some insights on that.
Yep.
And they certainly said the things that Select are doing. And look, we spoke to some bot people too, and they said it's just incredibly difficult to get through on Select's side.
Yeah.
But what we did discover is there are Discord groups of people, and I won't name it because I don't want to give it attention, but they call them cooks, where effectively cook being COOK, where they post an information about a shoe or a jumper or a PlayStation or a Select box, tell them the details of when it's on sale, and then a mass group of people go and try to buy it and then flip it.
Of which some could be using bots. A lot of them are just individuals. But
the majority of it is all individuals.
And that's why people see, when you look on eBay, there's a consistency between a lot of the accounts, which show they'll have the box of Brilliance, and then they'll have a certain type of hoodie, and then they'll have, as you said, an Xbox or a PlayStation, maybe some sneakers, an EB product of some sort. And there are a wide variety of people that, we traditionally would have called them just like sneaker flippers, but they're not even just sneaker flippers. They are just, there is a whole industry out there of people, and it really grew during COVID, that are doing this sort of stuff now.
And I think it's been a combination of more industries above and beyond sneakers doing their releases online opposed to physical stores.
Absolutely.
So that's provided that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think that, I think I might have said to you in passing at the start before release, I'd expect somewhere between 5 and 10% of the print run to be consumed by these sorts of people.
Yeah.
Which it isn't a large amount of money, an amount of people, but you look at that being 200, 300, 400 boxes.
That's right.
And it looks like a lot on eBay.
Yeah.
And we certainly, I tracked it pretty closely the first couple of days, and there was probably anywhere between 100 to 200 boxes for sale on eBay over those first couple of days.
And the other thing we did look at in that period too was how many of those were getting cancelled as well.
Yeah.
So, and I think, again, this is where I think people need to appreciate how some of these companies, and Select being one of them, go above and beyond. It's one thing to stop transactions at point of purchase, using bot mitigation tools, things, enterprise software that you can purchase and that you can use, and real-time tracking, and there's ways to do it. But then what we've definitely noticed, and it's been a trend with Select for the last couple of years, but they went super hard this time from what we could tell from eBay, is they go and hunt down the particular types of accounts that are doing that are not in the fair play collector game. Are there going to be casualties along the way? Legitimate sales that get cancelled because they get pinged in certain ways, as certain indicators? Absolutely. But for the most part, so many of those eBay sales got cancelled when listings were cancelled, never to come back up again.
And I certainly asked some questions directly to Select in our marketing meeting, and they quite understandably didn't want to give me specific details because that's their IP of how they mitigate these things. But the overriding trend or feeling I got from them was that they've always said they're trying to get cards in the hands of collectors.
That's right.
And if they have a look at, I'm guessing, accounts that have made a purchase that have never bought anything and clearly are somehow associated with a flipper account on eBay, I imagine that would fall into their metric of who they're canceling.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a variety of different things. There's an Australian company that specializes in this stuff. There's a company called Equal, EQL, and they are becoming a serious business. And what they do is they do the back end of basically sales for a number of the big sneaker brands, whether it's Nike Direct, Foot Locker, whatever else it is. But it's becoming more prevalent because anything that's limited edition, whether it's trading cards, PlayStations, or anything that's hard to get, as soon as the secondary market value is there, because there's more demand and supply, the door is completely open to all this sort of stuff. And we're going to see it happen more and more into the future. That's the reality.
So a question here from Glenn. Do you both think that this happens with highlights and rising stars cards as well as only major releases? The short answer is I would say no, because there is not a limited amount of those. They print to order, and Squid has actually just put up that response there. They print those cards to order. So there's a time period that you can buy it, and whether it's 50 gets sold or 5,000 gets sold, they print those. So that is certainly not as prevalent. It's more with these products,
the limited run products, of which everything these days
that also demand, but also have secondary market value for a quick flip. So a highlight, you can go and buy a highlight, doesn't mean it's necessarily worth double what the highlight is the next day. Whereas you go buy a PlayStation, you can make X amount of percentage straight away.
And just to end there where we started off, the concern that we have with those external people who have nothing to do with this hobby or this industry is the money. They're taking the money out and it's not coming back through. It's not being reinvested in people's collections or within the retail market or the retail space.
Business of cards.
And the business of cards either. So that's part of the issue. You want to see if Select is selling, let's say, $1 million worth of boxes that are worth $2 million on the secondary market. We want to see as much of that money recirculating around, because inevitably it leads to everyone then getting the cards that they want for their collections.
Yeah, and I think there was big debate about people selling boxes in the early days, and obviously it's always an emotionally charged period after a sale. But as we've said many times, you can collect in any way you want, and if you choose to go and buy 4 boxes, sell 2 to then go and fund either your boxes or buy cards, no worries at all. And again, we're not really judging people on whatever they do on any commercial level.
No, we're just saying what the impact of it is.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly right.
But there is also going to be, we scream out for Select to do things, and we have done that over the years. There were clearly issues a year and a half ago. It seems like they've done taken really positive steps. Again, as you mentioned, is it a perfect science? No.
And it will never be.
No, of course
the reality.
not.
It's how do you appease the many? And some will always unfortunately slip through and suffer.
Of course.
And slip through the other way too. So it's just the way it goes. But I think we saw the most attacked AFL release we've probably ever seen from an external, we'll call it flippers market. I think they did a tremendous job to get rid of it.
It's a perfect storm. It's a price point that is cheap. It's the only product that Select do that multiplies 2 or 3x what its retail is.
Yeah.
Supremacy only ever really doubled on the secondary market.
Yeah.
Optimum almost got to double. Prestige doesn't get to double or gets close to it. You know, pretty much straight out of the gate, $400, $450 for a box of Brilliance.
Yeah.
You know, I think we stopped buying at about $400. So, Crispy just made an interesting point there. I just saw that pop on my screen. Will multiple drops come in or multiple drops per release come back? I would say probably no, Crispy, for all the things that we just said. If you put it in one drop, it gives more legitimate collectors a chance to buy product. If you split that out, that gives multiple opportunities, more rogue accounts to get it. So I would say probably no. I mean, Janks, you own Select. Is that going to happen?
Based on what we've been doing of recent, I think the trend will continue of sticking with the single drop.
And Glenn made a good point. Very grateful for the SEC membership, as I can just get my SEC boxes and then go and breaks and trade for PC players. And absolutely, you know, we sat here 2 years ago and you were not sure about SEC, and then eventually went and bought it on the 11th hour. SEC has been one of the greatest initiatives Select have done. I don't see anyone ever complaining that you know, it wasn't.
And I think
there isn't value for money.
Absolutely. And with the annual renewal
Squid, we're going to get to that in a sec. Don't stress. We're going to come back to that.
The renewal process and whatever, the screening and everything, you know, should ensure that collectors continue to be able, if you're not on there yet, you've got an opportunity to become an SEC member.
Yep.
And whenever that is, like March or something again next year.
It's generally just after Footy Stars. I think it's between Footy Stars and whatever, Prestige or whatever it is. I'm going to come back to that.
Okay.
So look, Brilliance has been really good. Clearly the gold cards have been the sleeper, or not the sleeper, but they're going to be the ones that really hold their value. I thought the signatures always came out pretty hot, but are coming back into line where I think they are. Look, it's a fantastic release. You know, again, don't think it's going to get much cheaper than it is now. So if you're holding off to buying cards, I would definitely be looking at buying them sooner rather than later.
Just the trend over the last couple of weeks is it doesn't seem like there's many cards up for sale. It seems like a huge amount of the product's been opened. In saying that, we should see more emerge for sale at the announcement of the next release, whenever that actually happens. And I don't know. Brilliance is a great release. I can't believe those gold cards. You know, I've only just come back a few days ago, so I've seen the cards for the first time. Yeah.
Sammy Ma with a question there. SEC allocation of boxes per release should be doubled. I just don't think it works, Sam, that if you end up doubling it, you then have less on public sale, which is restricting a whole heap of collectors that may not be SEC members wanting boxes. Again, it's not a perfect science, but, you know, if you doubled SEC this time, that would be what, 4 boxes?
Yeah. So put it into
there was only 4,300 boxes.
That's
so
right, there'd be nothing left.
There'd be nothing left.
Yeah.
So it just wouldn't work.
Yeah. But maybe in other releases it does. Like and I'm sure they weigh that up on a case by case basis. People need to also understand it's not like there's 5,000 members. Select has somewhere around 30,000 subscribers, 30,000 accounts, somewhere around that.
We asked that question one day.
Yeah, it was recently. So from memory, it was right around
in the email database.
Yeah, it was right. Yeah, that was right around 30,000 people have registered accounts. That's 30,000 people that have capability or accounts to make a purchase. Whether they all do or not is another thing altogether, but they have the ability to be utilized to purchase.
Yep.
So again, don't think that there's a huge conspiracy of dudes operating bot networks just going after it. You are legitimately competing against a huge volume of people that you've never dealt with before because they're not in the Facebook communities.
Yeah, and there's a whole world outside of Facebook. All right, so Brilliance. Oh, there was a question about signatures. Luke's asked a question. Is the thought that most / any SIGs of any release hold their value? Look, I think that it's a fairly general statement you're making there.
I support it.
Yeah, signatures are always down the track going to hold value, especially the short print stuff. We have said multiple times over the years that signatures and autographs in AFL
are undervalued,
highly undervalued. Yeah. And the cost and the logistics of getting them, which I know through some other businesses stuff that I've done, is super expensive. And the fact that some of these signatures sell for the prices they do are insane. I guess you look long back trying to find signatures from the old days, and they're just impossible to find. So it's a hard question to answer definitively,
I'm
Luke.
with you. I'm going to be more of a straight shooter than AJ here. I'm
Right.
absolutely with you, Luke. I think that, yes, there's amazing non-signature cards, and what gives them value is the card quality coupled with the short print and the numbering. Fantastic. But to me, signature cards will always stand the test of time because it's got something on it that can only be acquired and happen whilst that person is alive. The cardboard can live forever. The person signing it can't.
That's true.
So to me,
that's true.
Signatures are something special. Yeah.
Hayden here with a question. Brilliant Silvers was overkill with 4 per team. Could have easily picked a couple of names in each team that weren't needed. Haven't seen one person saying looking for Ben Allen. So just to touch on that, Hayden, if they don't do more players, they can't increase the print run.
It's 2,000 less boxes.
It's 2,000 less boxes, and then suddenly people are only getting one box for SCC, not 2. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. The fact that people aren't looking for Ben Allen, well, Fremantle is just not a heavily collected team, so there is always going to be less demand once those handful of Freo collectors get those cards, opposed to the higher collected teams. So I don't think that statement's quite right, and it's probably just, there's a bigger thing to play than that. It's not that simple. Sorry, there's heaps of questions coming through. Yeah. I'm just going to go back to the squid one just quickly. I know it's jumping out of Brilliance. AFLW highlight this week was a sign of things to come. Will be interesting to see the print run and viability of AFLW cards. Disappointing, no rising star. So Squid, absolutely, we're really pleased to see more AFLW stuff and more things to promote the game happening. I'm sure we're going to see more either standalone releases or cross-pollination of releases moving forward. I have asked the question about Rising Star, and they've told me that it will be coming out next week. There were some logistical delays with photos and AFL because it all comes through the AFL. So my understanding is next week there will be Rising Star for next week, and this week they're going to run through moving forward.
Okay, cool.
But again, I don't know the exact way it works, but select a given photos because AFL media.
That's right.
And if the media, they don't get the photos to them in time, they can't do the highlights because, again, they're all printed. So long story short.
There's something you guys just learned if you didn't already know. The card companies, they don't use their own photos. They're not allowed to. They get supplied photos from the AFL.
Yep.
So then they pick and choose out of what they're supplied from AFL media.
Yep. And my understanding is the AFL are actually involved in the highlight discussions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's not a complete select thing. Don't quote me on that. I mean, you own the business. But
what I say there.
Yeah. My understanding is that, it's just a logistic thing. So don't stress. There will be Rising Stars next week. How quickly do you think Optimum will be? Well, we don't know for sure that Optimum's coming.
No, but I think it's fair to say
through the leaks.
We've seen a bunch of DPSs get leaked that clearly had Optimum logos.
Was it Paul Connors?
So Paul Connors is a big player manager, and it looked like a bunch of his players that he represents that he's got signed.
Yep.
Obviously, images were leaked out. It showed the Optimum logo. Select has not said anything official about it. There's been no announcements yet, but I think it's pretty. It's a pretty fair assumption Optimum's coming.
When do you think it'll come? A month?
Look, ordinarily it's August is when it came out last year. However, we've obviously seen Brilliance come into that gap period, which makes, in my mind, logic behind it would say you would think 4 weeks. Offset by 4 weeks to what it would normally be.
They're generally 2 months,
6 weeks.
2 months between releases.
I would think we're, in the next couple of weeks, certainly some murmurs will start to come out. Optimum.
And I clicked on the wrong thing there. So sorry, there's heaps of comments going here. How quickly do you think it'll sell out? I mean, again, we don't know any details about it all. I think the print run last year was 700 cases, 8,400 boxes.
Something like
that. So, and I think it was 1 for SEC, 4 general sale. Don't hold me to that, but I think that's roughly what it was.
Either way, Cade, unless they did something to really stuff it up and something disastrous to it,
Yeah.
we're looking at an instant sellout again. It's that, I suppose it's a question of, is it done by the time you click refresh, or do you get 2 times to click refresh? You know,
I think
it's going to be gone in an instant.
Yeah, I think we'll you look, generally, if you are prepared and set up and push the button right on the release time, 99 times out of 100, you're going to be able to pick up a box. But again, never say never. Again, that's Janks's fault.
Yeah. Either way, though, my expectation is whatever it is, whenever it is, it will sell out very quickly.
Absolutely.
Prepare yourselves now. Expect something's coming, certainly in the next month or so.
Steve Massia, are we going to see the remaining teams get a Virtuoso, Sig, and Optimum? I have no idea. Maybe. I don't know. Virtuoso wasn't part of Optimum last year, so they might do it. I don't know. Do you know anything about that?
That's a good question. What teams are even remaining?
Brisbane, GWS, North, Adelaide.
Your guess is as good as mine.
No
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Pete Buchanan. That's an interesting one.
What do you think the bonus card will be? Cert 17 and Dominance 2 both had them.
Yeah. So what Pete's
bonus
saying
card.
is, so basically, so remember, certified 2016 had the Footy's Finest was a case hit, and plus it had the patches.
Yep.
Then 2017 had the addition of the influential.
Right.
Dominance had the addition of what was the influential was the addition as well.
Yeah.
So Pete Buchanan's essentially saying historically, the second release of a series has had something else added to it.
Yeah. Again, don't know.
I don't know, but if history repeats, then
I personally hope they don't do influentials again.
Oh, mind you, Wade's right. They had the gold headliner last year as a non-checklisted card.
Yeah, the Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they keep going with that trend again. Yeah. Who knows? We're going to know that in a month, I guess, when it comes out. But look, Series 2, obviously, we will bring you information as soon as we hear something. But Easter egg like God, yeah, they didn't announce it. That's right, and that's fun. It's, I still remember when Minx opened a box here.
Yeah, and we were like, "What the hell?"
And it was like a Kennedy gold headline, and he was like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, that's right. That was classic.
It was good.
That was classic. Just quickly, Ben Adams, as I said before.
Hang on, let me get it up on the screen because people are listening on podcasts.
Ben's had a couple of comments.
No, they cancel orders afterwards. Lol, even if you get one, you may not get one.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you were listening earlier, but as we said, they clearly went through and did a bunch of manual cancellations after orders had gone through. There would be a number of flags and indicators to them as to why orders get cancelled. And obviously, when an order gets cancelled, the way the Shopify system works, I know this because we use Shopify on our back end, it automatically re-uploads that piece of inventory into the management system. So again, as I said, I'm sure there's legitimate ones that ended up getting cancelled and fell through, but I would think that those would be, you as AJ said, maybe 100 to 1 or 200 to 1. For every 100 cancellations, there may have been one which was a legitimate purchase, which unfortunately got cancelled.
Yep.
And again, some of those reasons might be to be with being newer accounts, newer people, less purchase history, etc., etc.
And look, I have seen over previous releases that some people have had an order cancelled. They've contacted Select, and Select have then reinstated their order.
So Ben did say that he contacted them. He didn't hear back, and whatever it is. So again,
reply to his fucking email, mate.
No, I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. But look, it's you're not the first one, Ben. And as I said, I think they're trying to do the best they can. Either way, it's always going to be a shit show in terms of the way people view it.
Yep.
If they don't cancel orders, people are furious that orders didn't get cancelled. They cancel shitload of orders, and a couple go through that maybe shouldn't have been cancelled.
And unfortunately,
Ben,
there's probably a lot of people that get orders in, and I'm certainly not saying this is you for 1 second, are trying to get additional orders in. They get them cancelled, and then get upset that
Yeah, I just think there's just too many variables.
Yeah, it's too many. It's too many.
The more they
don't read anything too into
the more they do to try and stop the bots and to mitigate the problems.
Yep.
The more variables come into play. That's
Ben Andrew, we're on a Ben rush here with questions. Ben, we've talked about this a few times. Hey boys, do you think we'll see numbered cards at less than 25? Do you think that's a good idea? that's you.
We started at probably in episode 1 or 2 of Card Authority. I maintain the same position. 25 is the tested number, in my opinion.
Yep.
We did talk about maybe something super special comes out one day at number to 20, but 25 in 2019, the market was tested to that rubber band of 25, we'll call it.
Yep.
I think since then, there's so many new people involved. I was saying probably 6 months ago, 12 months ago, that I think 40 numbered cards to 40 are the equivalent of numbered cards to 25 from 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
So I certainly think it's, if they do go below 25, they have to really then consider that there is no future in team collecting.
Yeah, and it's a hard no for me too, because fundamentally there are still so many people that are team collectors. It just doesn't work.
The idea, like, there's been so much discussion over the last 12 months about how the scarcity of cards, and because of the volume of people now involved, it's hard for people to do full team sets because it's become so competitive and expensive. But the reality is that's not shining through. The notion that all these people are bailed out it's not there.
Yep.
It's not there. The vast and overwhelming amount is still team collecting. Yes, player collecting is becoming more popular. Individual set and card collecting is as well. But we are still in AFL underpinned by team master set collectors.
So again, it's a no from me. I don't see it ever happening anytime soon. And Select have been very clear that they don't think, Mason, thoughts on the new Regal 101s and 10-year draft prospects? We talked about 10-year draft prospects. Look, some of the cards look good, but at the end of the day, they're a non-licensed product and they just don't really hold value.
So definitely the thing in the short...
But a couple of them look nice.
Yeah, in the short few days, from what I've seen, certainly in terms of threads and posts and stuff like that, some of the cards really do look awesome. The aesthetic and stuff looks fantastic. But as AJ said, the concern at the moment is I'm not seeing really anything change hands. So there's definitely a lack of perceived value, which, as you said, I think because it's not certified by the AFL and there's
not current players.
Yeah, and it's not accredited. There's no performance-based playing because there's no current players. It's sitting sort of in a no man's land at the moment. Almost.
Is it memorabilia? Is it?
Well, that's right. It's probably more in the memorabilia realm.
Yeah.
As to where it's situated on.
And there's an
interesting one.
And there's definitely been, as you look at some breakers and also, some sales posts, as we just said, not really a lot is happening on them. So, I mean, look, if it's your thing, go for your life. But I certainly wouldn't be investing huge amounts of money into it.
Yeah.
But, their own choice. Will Select win the license again, Janks? Have you won the license? Have you lost the license?
So look, this is the reality of what I believe and my understanding of licenses and how they work, and particularly the AFL license. And pretty much Select and Team Coach both have very long-standing histories with the AFL, including licenses, which they both currently have. I just don't. There's been a lot of conversation going on about this the last few weeks. It seems to be fairly unwarranted, to be honest.
Unless you guys know stuff that we don't.
Yeah, unless you know stuff that we don't. Certainly, I can't see how anything changes for either Select or Team Coach in the future. Anytime in the future. So. And as far as I know, both those companies have current AFL licenses.
Lengthy licenses, yes. And they've been paying the AFL a lot of money for a lot of years. So, yeah, unless you know something we don't, Richo, I think it's pretty safe. No tops of Fanatics, obviously they're buying around heaps of things.
And certainly make no mistake about it, whether it's Fanatics or Tops or anyone right now versus cards in the companies in the past, could have been TLA for years or whoever, attempts from Scanlons, all those sorts of things. The reality is there's always people tendering and trying to put through for all license categories, not just trading cards. It's in every category. And there would certainly be more trying to do it at the moment, but I don't see why the AFL, especially after the last couple of years, would deviate from what they were doing.
Solly, why shouldn't Select do Supremacy 3 this year? Well, they've done Brilliance. I can't see them doing another, I guess what we call a Series 3 or a big release. if they were going to do it, I guess they do it next year.
Do you think there'll be something else after Series 2 this year, like a Christmas-style release or something like that?
I don't think they'll do Christmas packs again, but they may do
something, not Christmas packs.
They might. They may do.
They weren't great, the
they may do
packs,
Supremacy Rookie.
Yeah, so I would like to
that
think
could
they'll
happen.
do Supremacy
Yeah,
Rookie.
I can see that happening.
I think that logic says that they would do Supremacy Rookie or something similar again.
I could see them doing Supremacy next year. You know what I mean? Every 2 years, they took a year off and then Brilliance back this year. That would be my guess, but Solly, your guess is as good as mine. Richo, will Panini lose their license change NBA cards? I don't know. That's probably a lot of unknowns because there's still a couple of years before a changeover.
But also on that, there's a bit more to that, Richo, as well, which is so Panini is essentially lost the forward license of a few sporting categories in the US to Fanatics. But the flip side to it is Fanatics already announced that they are farming it back out to Panini. So all the pre-existing production and pre-existing brands still exist. Yeah. Panini as a company still exists. Instead of producing the cards and selling them directly to the market, they're producing the cards for Fanatics.
Yeah.
And Fanatics is selling them to the market.
But we won't know that for a couple of years.
Yeah, but I don't think it changes the landscape. It's definitely, I think what changes the landscape is the fact that people and the mainstream is well aware that there are huge companies around the world putting massive money on the line in the trading card sector. And to me, that shows that trading cards as a marketplace and as a hobby, as much as it's going to have ebbs and flows, and yes, we've seen a drop in the NBA and certain other categories off their highs last year, the reality is companies don't just put in big money and invest in something they expect to collapse 2 years later. These are work on 10-year cycles minimum. So, yeah,
that's right.
It shows market strength.
And it's still too early to call.
Yeah.
It's still a while. I'm going to fire through. There's like heaps of questions coming through, so I'm getting through these quick as we can. Do you guys think the redemption cards are dropping in value in a resale sense due to the effort in postage? No.
Don't see it.
Don't see it. Would there be any grievance from Select about Team Coach over their new higher-end gold cards being produced? I don't know, Janks, are you upset?
Interesting question. However, I think both companies, and again, with my understanding of licensing, not just around cards, but all categories, there's very specific stipulations as to what you can and can't do. All license holders try and straddle the line of what they can and can't do, and they certainly test each other at certain stages. My understanding is Team Coach, they can't print serial numbers on what they're doing. They can't.
Well, it's a game card.
That's right. They can't do signings. All their cards link back to a gaming system.
Yep.
I don't see anything wrong with what they've done in that sense. And I'm sure after doing it for a second year in a row, there's no problem there from the AFL.
I'm pretty sure Select and Team Coach don't really care what each other's doing.
Yeah.
Tracking NBL cards, what's happening there? Tyrone,
Tops.
not sure. Tops has got it.
Yeah.
I think they said they were going to do something for this season.
Yeah.
Still, we haven't had a lot of information about it.
Yeah, just so you guys know, though, AJ and I did attempt a tender at one point to try and be the publisher for NBL. And
we didn't win it.
No, we didn't win it, but we got close. We did get close, but good on Tops. I'm sure they can do a far better job or larger job. Maybe not better.
Not better.
Bigger job than what we would be able to do.
No.
When I say we, AJ and I, not we as in Select.
No. I heard, Richo, I heard Brilliance came before Optimum because of unscheduled delays. No, I don't think that's true. I think Select, when I asked the question, they understood that everyone needed a little bit of respite and they thought they'd just give a little bit more breathing space before whatever Series 2 is. So they did Brilliance.
Yeah. So
that's all we know.
Obviously, AJ repeated to me that conversation that was had with them, and it sounds like they were very forthcoming in saying, we have our schedules work 12 to 18 months in advance. When we were already programming 2021 with all the releases and with Supremacy being in that year, they had set up their programming accordingly. Obviously, we only got told this, or he only got told this a few weeks ago after it was announced that there was a method to the madness. So again, obviously,
and I personally think they nailed it.
Yeah,
if
we talked about it. I'm sorry, but we talked about it.
We had Optimum a month ago.
Go back 6 to 9 months of Card Authority. There's every chance that people in this podcast and you guys in the comment section, with us, along with us, planted the seed that they needed to be careful of financial fatigue in the market.
Yep.
They've clearly taken note of it. Have they given us credit for it? No, but I'm just going to take the credit on behalf of the community.
David Garvin, little observation: kids collect Team Coach and asked me to sell some of their cards. They pretty much sold instantly compared to some of my select cards. Different. I mean,
the reason they're selling is because other kids need those cards, and it's really interesting
to play the game.
Yeah, exactly
and
right.
Parents buy it for them.
Yeah,
and stuff
exactly
like that.
right. And we certainly see that in Footy Stars versus Team Coach. They're two very different audiences. The last couple of years, there's been a small, a percentage of collectors who have come in and bought some of the Team Coach cards. But when we see our eBay sales, there's two completely different groups of people. There is a lot of parents buying for kids the cards that kids need.
And Glennie, probably no need to mention about stuff like that. I'm using none, nonetheless, but we don't need to. Some of the memes that went around were very funny.
Richo MBL is the MBL trading cards.
Richo, I think he knows. He's trolling us.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, MBL. Select leaving money between releases so we can go in breaks. Probably Burn. I mean, that's
a genius. Whoever came up with that one.
Well done, Janks. Good job.
Thanks very much.
Okay, so we've covered. I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to. Am I forgetting anything?
Unicorn hunting. We'll get
to unicorn. Yeah, we'll get to unicorn. I think there was something else I wanted to talk about.
I think Bernie said something earlier about repacks. Obviously, that seems to be the flavor of the last
repacks.
couple of months.
Obviously,
as well.
We've done some repacks at RGV. I've noticed a few other breakers. Obviously, Cherry were probably the path beaters with that.
Yeah, Cherry got in. It was
Cherry Pie.
They've done it for the last couple of years. Obviously, the guys over at Fast Breaks did one quite early on as well.
Yep.
Obviously, repacks have been a huge thing in all other sports and especially NBA.
Yep.
Jono from Mailman has been doing them for
it's
a
been
long
huge
time as well. It's been huge, and it's certainly nothing new. Cherry dipped their feet in. A couple of other people have certainly done it. We've given it a little bit of a go as well. As with all, you see people who are very happy, then you see complaints. Like with everything, and especially like with breaks, like with repacks, like anything, retails, whatever it may be. Just do your research and choose your own adventure.
Yeah,
and it's up to you.
And we certainly know, and we, no judgment on anyone else doing. We like to be pretty transparent with what we do with ours. We're probably going to do another one next week. Funny enough.
Yeah.
So again, some people like them, some people don't. Choose your own adventure. When a Raz is coming back, we actually talked about that today.
Yeah.
So they could be coming back. Can we talk about Minwar? Well, Minwar is
one of the great
members of the great members of the hobby. Put your hand up, Minwar, if you're around. Graham, we did forget that. Infamous, you might have covered it, but what's your guess on percentage of Brilliance opened?
Okay,
Janks, we haven't talked about it.
I missed the ferocious opening, but I'm going to have to say, based on what I can see card-wise availability in terms of singles, I'm going to say that like 70% at least has been opened. And whatever is really remaining is either sitting with breakers or sitting with people trying to sell to breakers, or people holding for the long term. And that can't be more than 20% of the run.
So what's that, 800 odd boxes? Yeah, that sounds about right. I would have said 70 or 75% off the top of my head as well. So we're pretty aligned here. I mean, I know what a few breakers are holding, and obviously we know what we've bought. I think that sounds about right. Yeah. There wouldn't be heaps.
RGV merch, we can definitely look into that. That'll be something that we'll
do.
A few lucky people have got card authority caps from the
I think Will, who works for us, is still waiting for his RGV jumper he's been asking me for about 3 months.
We'll get some stuff organised.
Yeah. Bring back RGV Razzers.
They're coming back. We're just waiting for the right time, Crispy.
Yep. Don't worry, they'll be back. We all love our Razzers.
People seem very focused in different areas, so we're just trying to find the right time to do that, and certainly another good way.
Mason, I think over 10 of the 01 Gold Bruins 35s have been hit. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I think the count on the Lenny Hazes is over 20 so far that have been made aware of. So
because someone's
tracking the Lenny Hayes ones. One of the Saints guys is tracking the Lenny Hayes, and it's going to be somewhere around the 20 or so mark. So,
Wayne, we probably won't talk about that. There's no point talking about that sort of stuff. I think everyone's had their speaking about it. Bring back the wheel. Don't worry, Burn. The wheel will be back.
The wheel's coming back.
If you're not doing unicorn tonight, no, I am going to do a unicorn. Don't worry, Hayden. Any idea on optimum release dates, guys? Again, we sort of touched on this before.
Sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks, we assume.
Generally, it's like 2 months between every release.
Yeah.
So when was it? It was start of this month. Brilliance was
start of August.
So probably the end of September.
Max King base, and Stacey says,
I think Stacey, you've won 4 St Kilda cards in like 24 hours at RTV break.
Stacey's doing well on the Saints breaks.
Yeah, you've done very well.
Certainly, the Max Kings are hard to find, and I don't have a lot of them, so I'm not responsible for that one.
All right, so unicorn hunting for today. We've been a little bit quiet on unicorns this year. I think you got a couple more weeks to save, Richo. We all do, hopefully.
Yeah.
Unicorn this week. Now, we've seen a few people ask us for this card, but we've also got in touch with someone that's been harassing us for it. We are looking for a Paddy Ryder Supremacy 2019 Superstar Signature Patch Booklet.
Yeah.
So he's wearing Port Adelaide colours in that.
Adelaide colours.
You don't really see them
been
around.
Looking for a couple of years for it.
Yep.
Some would be aware who he is because he's posted a fair bit about it. It just seems super hard to find. I was saying to AJ before the show when we were talking about the unicorns, when Supremacy came out, there was people giving them away for $200. I got offered multiple, and I didn't take them at the time.
Didn't that bite you in the ass?
Yeah, well, look, I didn't collect the Port Adelaide cards anyway.
No, but what about your infamous Rewalt booklet that you said no to for like $400 or $200 or something?
Yeah, bought it for $12.50. Yep.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yep. I know with Paddy Ryder, it seems hard to find. The Port Adelaide ones they've been stashed away. So if you know or you have one that you'd like to sell, get in touch with us. We will certainly connect. Paddy Ryder, numbered to 25, Superstar Signature Patch Booklet.
Yep.
There was a question there that I just wanted to... Yeah, no one wanted them in 2019. Absolutely. Yep. Price, what do we think the price on the Neil Brownlow predictor is?
Well, I saw Butters had put something up on Instagram.
Oh, did he?
I'm pretty sure it was Butters had something on Instagram.
Make sure you check that out. Butters Collection.
Yeah, the Butters Collection on Instagram. So young Thomas Butters, he had something up about the Neil BP had just started cooling all of a sudden.
Well, who's the favourite?
Well,
is it Neil?
I think he is, but he's drifted out to $3 now or something like that. And we've seen a slight cool in the price. Butters, if you're watching, feel free to pop some information in the comments there. But definitely check out the Butters collection on Instagram. You can see he's tracking what's going on with the Brownlow movement.
And I think too, with any of those, especially interstate players, those platinums are always going to land about $700-800 once they win.
The winning ones, yeah. And look, it all depends which team it is. You know,
that's what
lower end teams $500. So,
well, I think interstate more. Probably if they were Melbourne based, it'd be a little bit more, and then they'll move down to about $600 after everyone's got them. That's just a guess.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're looking to buy one, I guess what I'd be scared to buy
the platinum one.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure what I saw was the last one sold 2 days ago for $202.
That seems cheap.
Which is cheap, and that's what I mean by
I would have said $300 to $400 sounds the right price if you think he's going to win. Glenn, I wanted to bring this up. So someone posed a question somewhere else on a thread the last couple of days. What happens if there is a multi-way tie for the Brownlow?
Well, either you're going to get a booklet with 3 players on it, or you get 3 booklets.
Well, it's got to be 3 booklets because if you've got card number 1 and I've got card number 1, we can't split a 3-person booklet.
True.
So
about that.
They're going to have to produce multiple booklets.
Hey guys, if there's a 3-way tie, we're going to have to produce 3 lots of booklets.
Okay. So, that would be the answer. If there would be multiple Brownlow booklets for the winners, it wouldn't be a joint one. That's my understanding.
Coleman booklet. So Coleman medalists.
Yep.
Being determined.
Yep. Have you printed them yet?
Haven't printed them yet, but I would expect them. They came around Footy Stars released this year, didn't they? Or did they come earlier? The Coleman, I can't remember. Anyway,
it'll be.
Don't expect it to come in a week's time. Basically, it's going to be a bit of time.
And the other thing too is being that it's Carlton, and unfortunately they didn't make the finals. Those guys would all be off for a couple of months now. Yeah. So it probably won't be till Christmas. Yeah. Just at a guess.
Yeah, imagine losing by a point after being in the 8 the whole year.
Yeah. Brutal.
Unlucky.
How did Skill go in the finals?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Big odds and Dusty to the Gary Ayres medalist. Absolutely. Carlton.
All
right. Look, it's been a fun show. Thank you very much. Obviously, it's fantastic always having you guys ask questions, and we try to answer and help as much as we can. The Brilliance presses are running burn. We've got them making some more now. So thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. Yes, Janks, fantastic work on Media Street today. 3RW, ABC.
Yeah, ABC.
You even
ABC
send me
News National.
you even send me voice recordings just pretending
Garbage.
to be on air.
Regardless.
Thanks a lot, guys. You guys all take care. Be kind to yourself, kind to each other. Good luck with your collecting. Buy up your Brilliance cards because they are drying up. And we look forward to catching you guys.
Thanks, Crispy.
In a couple of weeks. Thanks, Crispy. Thanks, guys.
I feel like we're getting back in the groove now.
Yeah. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and hopefully we know more information about Series 2, which we assume is going to be optimum in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Go Tigers.
Saints for the premiership.